Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive with us.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that I think affects every single person listening,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, the often unacknowledged role of emotions in negotiation.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we're going to be using the book Beyond Reason, Using Emotions as You Negotiate
Uh-huh.
by Roger Fisher and Daniel Shapiro.
Great book.
And we're going to really kind of dig in and see what we can learn from it.
Okay.
So, one of the first things that they bring up is this idea that, people often think that emotions are disruptive in a negotiation.
Right.
That you want to kind of go in and be purely rational.
Keep a cool head.
Right, exactly.
Like be Spock.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep a cool head,
Yeah.
But, one of the things they point out is that that's actually not really how it works.
Well, it's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're humans. We have emotions.
Right.
And to think that we can just shut them off like a light switch is just not realistic.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of misconception that, being rational means being emotionless.
Right.
Right.
And it's not true.
Yeah, and they actually tell a really interesting story about a researcher named Michelle who was going into a salary negotiation, and she really wanted to appear completely rational.
Mm.
And so she kind of tried to tamp down any of her emotions.
Suppress them.
Yeah.
Just shut them down.
Yeah, but it totally backfired.
How so?
So she ended up, kind of coming across as aggressive and demanding
Oh, wow.
because her emotions were basically leaking out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you're trying to suppress your emotions, they're going to come out somehow,
Right.
whether it's in your tone of voice or your body language.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just shut them off completely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have experienced this where we're trying to like hide our frustration or disappointment or something. It just comes out sideways.
Yeah, that reminds me of a time when I was negotiating a deal and I was getting really frustrated.
Uh-huh.
And I thought I was doing a good job of hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other person picked up on it right away.
Really?
And it actually made the situation worse.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, like you said, it's really important to acknowledge those emotions and find a healthy way to express them.
Yeah. So I guess, instead of seeing emotions as these like obstacles to be overcome,
Right.
we really should be viewing them as like valuable sources of information,
Absolutely.
which sounds a little counterintuitive.
Right. It does.
Think of like information as like data and numbers and facts.
Yeah, think of Spock again, right?
Yeah.
Pure logic.
Right.
But emotions are telling us something.
Yeah.
They're signaling what matters to us.
Yeah, and what matters to the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so ignoring them is like navigating in the dark.
It's like trying to drive a car with a blindfold on.
You're gonna crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if emotions are always present, like how can we harness their power instead of letting them control us?
That's a great question.
Because it does feel like sometimes emotions can control us.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have those moments where we say or do something in the heat of the moment and then later we regret it.
Right.
Right. So the key is to learn how to manage those emotions.
Yeah. And the authors introduce this framework called the 5 core concerns.
Oh, yeah. The 5 core concerns.
And these are basically fundamental human needs.
Right.
That are driving our emotions, especially in negotiation.
And they're so important to understand because they can really make or break a negotiation.
So what are these 5 core concerns?
Well, there's appreciation,
Okay.
affiliation, autonomy, status, and role.
Okay. So appreciation, affiliation, autonomy, status, and role.
Yeah, those are the 5.
And these act as both like a lens for understanding the other person's behavior,
Right.
but also a lever for kind of shaping the dynamics of the negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You can use them to influence the emotional tone of the negotiation.
And they really emphasize this idea of appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciation is huge.
Yeah, and they tell this great story about Roger Fisher encountering a woodcarver
Oh, yeah, I love that story.
in Tbilisi.
Yeah, in Tbilisi.
And I think there's some really valuable lessons we can learn from that story.
Absolutely.
So do you want to kind of walk us through it?
Sure. So Fisher's walking down the street, and he sees this woodcarver working on this beautiful tray.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I got to have that tray,
Yeah.
But the tray wasn't finished yet.
Okay.
And Fisher, being a negotiator, he's thinking, I can probably get a discount on this tray since it's not done.
Right.
So he approaches the woodcarver and, starts talking about the price.
Mm-hmm.
But the woodcarver refuses to budge.
Oh,
He's like, no, this is the price. Take it or leave it.
wow. So it's kind of that classic negotiation standoff.
Exactly.
Each side kind of dug in on their position.
Yeah, and Fisher's starting to get irritated,
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking this guy's being unreasonable,
Right.
but then he has this realization.
What's that?
He realizes that he hasn't acknowledged the woodcarver's pride in his work.
Mm,
This guy's an artist.
yeah.
He's put his heart and soul into this tray,
Mm-hmm.
and Fisher's just focused on the price.
He's not seeing the value of the craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of arguing about the price,
Mm-hmm.
Fisher shifts his approach.
Okay.
He starts expressing genuine admiration for the woodcarver's skill.
Oh, wow.
He tells him how much he loves the design,
Hmm.
how he can see the dedication and the craftsmanship in every detail.
So he's really focusing on the value.
Exactly.
Not just the monetary value, but the artistic value.
Right. And he emphasizes how much he wants the tray
Mhm.
as a reminder of the artist who made it.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
So he's not just buying a thing, he's buying a piece of art.
exactly.
That's really cool.
And you know what?
What?
The woodcarver's demeanor completely changes.
He warms up to Fisher, and
Mhm.
ultimately he agrees to sell him the tray.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing how a simple shift in focus can change the entire dynamic of a negotiation.
So by shifting his focus from the price to the value of the craftsmanship and the person behind it,
Right.
he was able to kind of completely change the interaction.
Exactly.
That's really powerful.
And it really highlights the importance of stepping back from our own immediate goals
Mm-hmm.
and trying to see things from the other person's perspective.
Yeah, because when we're so focused on, what we want,
Right.
we can kind of miss the bigger picture
Exactly.
and miss the opportunity to connect with the other person.
Right. And the book points out several obstacles that prevent us from expressing appreciation.
Uh-huh.
And one of the biggest is failing to understand the other person's viewpoint.
Right, because we get so caught up in our own arguments
Yeah.
that we don't really take the time to truly listen.
To really understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and understand the emotions and the motivations behind their words.
Exactly. It's not enough to just hear their words.
Right.
You got to understand the music behind the words.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And one way to do that is by practicing active listening,
Absolutely.
which the authors talk about, listening to the music, not just the words.
Right.
So paying attention to the tone of voice,
The emphasis.
the emphasis.
The body language.
Yeah, the body language, all of that.
All those nonverbal cues.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much those nonverbal cues can change the meaning of what's being said.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, if someone says, I like this proposal,
Uh-huh.
but they put the emphasis on I,
Yeah.
it's totally different than if they say, I like this proposal.
Totally different meaning.
Yeah.
Right. And active listening helps you pick up on those nuances.
Yeah, so it's not just about hearing the words, it's about understanding the message behind the words.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really important.
And another obstacle to appreciation is criticizing instead of seeking merit.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's so easy to focus on poking holes in the other person's argument
Yeah.
instead of looking for what's valid and valuable in what they're saying.
Yeah, so instead of automatically going on the defensive,
Right.
we should try to find something to appreciate in their perspective.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with their overall position,
Right.
but you can almost always find something to admire or respect about their reasoning.
Yeah, and that reminds me of that old saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Oh, that's a good one.
It applies so perfectly to negotiation.
It really does.
Because, if you're not even trying to understand the other person's perspective,
Right.
how can you expect them to understand yours?
Exactly.
Yeah, so finding merit doesn't equal giving in.
Right.
It's about building understanding
Mm-hmm.
and creating a foundation for a more productive conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even in highly charged situations, you can acknowledge the other side's reasoning without endorsing their stance.
Right. It's about recognizing the human experience behind their beliefs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you think about something like the pro-life, pro-choice debate. I mean, that's a very emotionally charged issue.
Yeah.
But you can still acknowledge the other side's reasoning.
Right.
You can say, I understand why you feel that way,
Mm.
even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah.
And that can go a long way in building a bridge between two very different perspectives.
Right. And then there's the final obstacle to appreciation,
Which is?
failing to communicate the merit we DOC.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
So, you know, we may actually recognize the value in the other
Oh.
person's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't express it.
Yeah, we keep it to ourselves.
Yeah, so it's not enough to just think positive thoughts.
Mm,
We have to articulate them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of using the right words.
Mm-hmm.
Simple phrases like, I find your arguments persuasive, or I admire the pride you put into your work.
Mm-hmm.
Those can go a long way in conveying appreciation.
Yeah, and remember, sincerity is key.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can't just, you know, throw out empty compliments.
Right.
The appreciation has to be genuine.
Yeah, it has to come from the heart.
Okay, so what if we find ourselves in a situation where the other person isn't being appreciative?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But the book has some tactics for that, too.
Oh, good.
Like, remember Roger Fisher's 3 minutes anecdote?
Remind me.
He was in this negotiation, and the other side was just not listening to him.
Uh,
So he insisted on having just 3 minutes to explain his perspective. And you know what? Those 3 minutes ended up changing the entire course of the negotiation.
wow.
Yeah, because he was able to get his point across in a clear and concise way.
And he was assertive.
Yes, and he was assertive.
Yeah.
He didn't let the other side steamroll him.
Mm-hmm.
He stood his ground and made sure his voice was heard.
So it's about confidently and assertively ensuring your perspective is heard.
Exactly.
Okay, are there other techniques we can use?
Well, think about the word ambulance on the front of those vehicles.
Okay.
It's written backward,
Right.
so drivers can read it correctly in their rearview mirrors.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah,
So we need to kind of tailor our message to the other person, just like that ambulance sign,
exactly.
so they receive it in the way we intend,
Precisely.
especially when emotions are running high.
Yes, especially when emotions are running high.
We need to really think about how our words will be perceived and make adjustments accordingly.
And sometimes that means reframing the way we express our own emotions.
Yeah, so instead of saying, I'm angry because you didn't consult me,
Right.
which immediately puts the other person on the defensive,
Yeah.
you could say something like, I'm feeling frustrated because I value being included in decisions that affect both of us.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift, but it makes a huge difference.
Right, because it takes the focus off blame and puts it on collaboration and shared understanding.
Yeah.
It's about expressing your feelings in a way that's both assertive and constructive.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground just on appreciation.
Yeah, we have.
It seems like expressing genuine appreciation, no matter the situation, can be a real game changer in any negotiation.
It really can.
But what about those other 4 core concerns? Affiliation, autonomy, status, and role.
Those are just as important.
Yeah.
And we'll explore them in detail in part 2 of this deep dive.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
All right, so stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. See you soon. So let's dive into those other 4 core concerns.
Okay.
Starting with affiliation.
Okay.
This is all about, feeling like you're on the same team, working collaboratively towards a shared goal.
Right.
When this need is met,
Uh-huh.
you create a much more positive and trusting atmosphere for negotiation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're working together towards a common objective,
Right.
it's easier to be open and honest even when there are disagreements. It's less about winning and more about finding a solution that benefits everyone.
Exactly. And when that sense of affiliation is missing,
Uh-huh.
things can go downhill quickly.
Oh, yeah.
You start feeling isolated, suspicious, or even resentful.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Think about a time when you've been excluded from an important decision.
Oh, yeah.
It puts you on the defensive, right?
Oh, absolutely. You feel like you're on the outside looking in,
Right.
and that can breed mistrust and negativity.
Exactly.
So how can we foster this sense of affiliation during a negotiation?
That's a good question.
Is it just about being friendly and polite?
It's more than just surface pleasantries. It's about finding genuine points of connection, whether it's shared interests, common goals, or even a similar challenge you've both faced.
So it's about building rapport.
Exactly.
That sense of, hey, we're in this together.
Right. Even acknowledging a mutual acquaintance or a shared experience
Yeah.
can help create that sense of camaraderie.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's move on to autonomy.
Right.
This core concern revolves around our need to feel in control of our own choices and destiny.
Yeah, autonomy is crucial in any decision-making process.
Right.
No one wants to feel pressured or coerced into something they don't agree with.
Exactly. It triggers that feeling of being trapped,
Yeah.
which can lead to resistance and even aggression.
Oh, absolutely.
When people feel their autonomy is threatened, they might dig in their heels, become defiant, even lash out.
It's like that fight or flight response kicks in.
Exactly.
So how can we ensure the other person feels a sense of autonomy during a negotiation?
Well, one way is to give them options
Uh-huh.
instead of dictating terms. Try offering a range of possibilities and let them choose what works best for them.
So empowering them to make their own choices
Exactly.
within a defined framework.
Right. And even small gestures like actively soliciting their ideas, demonstrating that you value their input,
Yeah.
can go a long way in fostering a sense of autonomy.
It's about making them feel like an active participant in the process,
Right.
not just a passive recipient of decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Now let's move on to status.
Okay.
This core concern is all about our need for recognition, respect, a sense of worth.
Yeah, everyone wants to feel valued and appreciated for their contributions.
Right. And when that need for status is met,
Uh-huh.
people are more likely to engage in a positive and constructive way.
I could see that.
But when our status feels threatened,
Uh-oh.
it can trigger all sorts of negative emotions.
It's like what?
Inadequacy, insecurity, even humiliation.
Oof, yeah.
And that can lead to unproductive behaviors.
Yeah, no one wants to feel like they're being put down or dismissed.
Exactly.
So how can we address this need for status in a way that promotes a positive and productive negotiation?
Start by acknowledging their accomplishments and expertise.
Okay.
Use their preferred title.
Uh-huh.
Defer to their knowledge on certain topics, and be sure to publicly praise their skills and contributions.
So it's about making them feel seen and appreciated
Exactly.
for who they are and what they bring to the table.
Precisely. And this is especially crucial in situations like negotiating with a boss or someone in a position of authority.
Right, where there's a power differential.
Exactly. A little bit of respect can go a long way in building a more collaborative and productive relationship.
That's a good point.
Now let's discuss the last core concern role.
Okay.
This is about finding fulfillment and meaning in the activities we engage in.
This is interesting because it goes beyond just the tasks we perform.
Right.
It's about how our work contributes to a larger purpose.
Exactly. And when people feel good about their roles, they bring a sense of energy and enthusiasm to any situation.
Yeah, it's like the difference between someone who's just going through the motions
Right.
and someone who's genuinely invested in the outcome.
Exactly. That level of passion can be contagious.
So how do we address this core concern of role and negotiation?
Well, one way is to take the time to understand the other person's perspective.
Okay.
Find out what they find meaningful about their role and how the negotiation aligns with their overall goals.
So seeing the negotiation from their perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like you could highlight how the agreement benefits their team or organization, how it allows them to showcase their skills, or how it contributes to a cause they believe in.
Connecting it to a greater purpose.
Right, something beyond just the immediate terms and conditions.
I like that.
And this brings us back to that story about Anna and Joe.
Oh, yeah. The couple who were at odds over Anna's son moving back home.
Exactly.
Their individual roles and needs were clashing.
Right. Anna was trying to balance being a supportive mother and a devoted wife, while Joe felt his role as a husband was being overshadowed.
Yeah, their different perspectives on those roles created a lot of tension.
And initially, they were both focused on their own needs and frustrations. But when Anna took the time to understand Joe's perspective,
to see how the situation impacted his vision for their future together, things started to shift.
So by acknowledging and addressing each other's core concern of role, they were able to find a solution that worked for both of them.
Exactly. And that's the power of this framework. When we take the time to understand what's truly important to the other person, we can create more fulfilling and mutually beneficial outcomes.
So if I'm heading into a negotiation, I should ask myself,
Yeah.
what are my core concerns in this situation?
Exactly.
And what might the other person's core concerns be?
Right. And you don't have to guess.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes simply asking, what are some things you care a lot about in this negotiation, can open the door to a more meaningful conversation.
So by actively engaging with these core concerns,
Yes.
we can transform negotiation from a battle of wills into a collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
That's incredibly empowering.
It is. And in part 3 of this deep dive,
We'll explore some specific strategies and techniques for using the 5 core concerns to achieve those win-win outcomes.
oh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you'll learn how to put this knowledge into action
Okay.
and start seeing real results in your own negotiations.
Okay, so we're back and we're ready to talk about actually putting all this knowledge into practice.
Yeah, it's one thing to understand these core concerns, intellectually,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to actually use them in real-life
So
negotiations.
true. So we've done our homework.
Mm-hmm.
We've identified, which core concerns are likely to be most prominent in negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
What's next? How do we actually use this to our advantage?
Well, the first step is preparation.
Okay.
Before you even walk into the negotiation,
Mm-hmm.
take some time to think about those core concerns.
Okay.
Both for yourself and for the other person.
So like creating a mental map
Exactly.
of the emotional landscape,
Yeah.
anticipating potential triggers,
Right.
planning how we might respond.
And remember, this isn't about manipulation,
We're
right?
playing mind games.
Yeah.
It's about genuine understanding and respect.
It's about finding those win-win solutions.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, so we've done our prep work.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the negotiating table.
Right.
What are some practical things we can do to kind of leverage these core concerns in real time?
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is express genuine appreciation.
Like in that story about the wood carver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simple phrases like, I find your arguments persuasive, or I admire the pride you put into your work,
Mm-hmm.
can really go a long way.
It's not just about the words, though, right?
No, it's about actions too.
Yeah.
Active listening,
Hmm.
asking thoughtful questions.
Really demonstrating that you value their input.
Exactly. It's about making the other person feel heard, understood, and respected.
And when people feel appreciated,
Mm-hmm.
they're less likely to dig in their heels
Right.
and, defend their position at all costs.
They're more open to compromise.
Okay, so appreciation is a good starting point.
But what about those other core concerns?
Well, for affiliation,
Right.
focus on building rapport.
Okay.
Find those points of connection, whether it's a shared experience, a common goal,
Yeah.
even a little bit of humor.
Oh, yeah. Laughter can be a great way to break the tension.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, with autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
empower the other person to make choices.
Okay.
Instead of dictating terms, offer options.
Right.
Let them choose what works best for them.
So giving them a sense of ownership and control.
Exactly.
Even within a defined framework.
Right.
Okay.
And for status,
Uh-huh.
we need to recognize and acknowledge the other person's worth and contributions.
Okay.
Use their preferred title,
Mm-hmm.
defer to their expertise,
Yep.
praise their accomplishments.
Make them feel seen and respected.
Wait.
And roll.
Roll.
We need to connect the negotiation to their overall goals and aspirations.
Right.
How does this agreement help them, fulfill their role
Exactly.
in a meaningful way?
Yeah. How does it contribute to something larger than themselves?
Yeah, framing it in terms of its larger impact.
It can really tap into a deeper level of motivation.
Okay, so this all makes so much sense.
Good.
But I'm curious, what if we're dealing with someone who's being difficult
Huh?
or unreasonable,
Yeah.
can we still use these core concerns?
Absolutely.
Really?
It might be more challenging,
Mm-hmm.
but it's often even more important in those situations.
Okay.
Sometimes the most difficult people are the ones who feel the least appreciated,
Oh, that's interesting.
the least respected,
Yeah.
the least in control.
So by focusing on addressing those core concerns,
Mm-hmm.
we might be able to kind of break down some of those barriers
Exactly.
and create a more productive dialogue.
And here's a key insight.
Okay.
Often addressing one core concern
Mm-hmm.
can have a positive ripple effect on the others.
Like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
So by expressing appreciation,
Yeah.
we might also be enhancing their sense of affiliation and status,
Mhm.
which makes them more open to collaboration.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
We've learned that emotions are not the enemy of negotiation.
No, they're not.
They're actually powerful allies,
Mm-hmm.
waiting to be understood and harnessed.
And by using this 5 core concerns framework,
Yeah.
you can really transform the way you approach negotiation.
Create more win-win solutions.
Absolutely.
Build stronger relationships.
And achieve more fulfilling outcomes.
in all areas of life.
Exactly.
And you don't have to master all of these techniques overnight.
No, just start with 1 or 2
Yeah.
that resonate with you.
And experiment.
The more you practice, the more natural it will become.
And for those of you who want to dive even deeper into this topic,
Mm-hmm.
we highly recommend checking out the full audiobook, Beyond Reason.
It's a game changer.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
That's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.